That ginger you buy at the grocery store for a couple of dollars can turn into an endless supply if you know what you are doing. One rhizome, planted correctly, produces enough ginger to keep your kitchen stocked year after year without ever buying it again. Most people have no idea this is even possible. They assume ginger is some exotic tropical crop that requires a greenhouse or perfect conditions. It does not. Today, I am walking you through the entire process from selecting the right piece at the store all the way through harvest and replanting. And if you stick around until the end, I am going to show you how to turn your homegrown ginger into a powder that lasts for months and tastes better than anything you can buy. Let us get growing. Fresh ginger from your own garden tastes completely different from the stuff that has been sitting in a produce bin for weeks. Once you experience that difference, you will never want to go back to store-bought. Plus, growing your own means knowing exactly what went into it and having it available whenever you need it. We are going to cover selecting your starter rhizome, setting up the perfect container environment, planting and care through the growing season, and harvesting in a way that keeps the plant producing indefinitely. First, understanding how ginger actually grows underground. Ginger gets called a root, but that is technically incorrect. What we eat and plant is a rhizome, which is actually a modified underground stem. This distinction matters for how you grow it. A true root like a carrot grows downward, pushing deeper into the soil as it develops. A rhizome spreads horizontally, creeping just below the surface and sending up new shoots as it expands outward. Picture it like an underground network that keeps extending in every direction, rather than a single taproot drilling down. Each of those knobby bumps on a ginger rhizome is called an eye, similar to the eyes on a potato. Every eye represents a potential new shoot. When you plant a piece of ginger, the eyes wake up first, pushing green growth toward the surface while simultaneously sending roots downward. More eyes mean more shoots. More shoots mean more photosynthesis happening above ground. More photosynthesis means more energy flowing back down to expand that rhizome network underground. This horizontal growth pattern drives every decision you will make about containers, soil depth, and a harvesting strategy. A tall, narrow pot wastes space the plant will never use. A wide, shallow container gives the rhizome exactly what it wants: room to spread sideways and keep producing new growth points. The plant biology dictates the growing method. Once you understand how ginger actually develops, the rest of the process makes intuitive sense. Finding the right starter piece takes about 2 minutes in any grocery store produce section. Look for rhizomes that feel firm and heavy, with smooth skin that is not shriveled or dried out. Wrinkled skin indicates the piece has been sitting around too long and may have lost viability. Soft spots or dark mushy areas mean rot has already started. Pass on anything that looks tired. The eyes tell you everything about sprouting potential. Look for those small nubs or slight bumps along the surface of the rhizome. Sometimes you will find pieces where the eyes have already started pushing out tiny green or pink points. Those are ideal because you know they are ready to grow. Even eyes that have not started showing visible growth will sprout once planted. But seeing that initial activity confirms you have a vigorous piece. Size matters more than most people realize. A chunk the size of your palm with 5 or 6 eyes will establish faster and produce more ginger in its first season than a tiny piece with 1 or 2 eyes. The larger rhizome holds more stored energy, like starting with a bigger battery. That energy translates directly into aggressive early growth before the plant even establishes its own photosynthesis operation. Bigger pieces also tolerate mistakes better. If conditions are not perfect during those first few weeks, a substantial rhizome has reserves to draw on while a small piece might simply give up. One thing to consider is whether your grocery store ginger has been treated with growth inhibitors. Some commercial ginger gets sprayed to extend shelf life by preventing sprouting. Organic ginger typically avoids this treatment, making it a safer choice for planting. If you can only find conventional ginger, soaking it overnight in room temperature water helps wash off any surface treatments and rehydrates the rhizome before planting. Breaking a large rhizome into sections works fine as long as each piece retains at least 3 eyes. Cut sections need 48 hours to dry before planting. Those fresh-cut surfaces invite rot if they contact wet soil immediately. Set the pieces in a warm spot with good air circulation and let the cuts callus. Over. The surface should feel dry to the touch rather than moist or tacky. Ginger spreads horizontally underground, so container choice should match that growth habit. Wide and shallow beats tall and narrow every time. A container 14 to 16 inches across gives a single rhizome enough room to expand through an entire growing season. Depth matters less. 8 to 10 inches accommodates the root system without wasting soil the plant will never reach. Drainage holes are non-negotiable. Ginger wants consistent moisture, but absolutely cannot tolerate waterlogged soil. Sitting in soggy conditions for even a few days rots the rhizome from the inside out. Check that your container drains freely. If water pools on the surface for more than a few seconds after watering, either the holes are blocked or you need a different container. Fabric grow bags work exceptionally well for ginger. The fabric breathes, preventing the overwatering problems that plague solid containers. Excess moisture simply passes through the sides. A 10 or 15 gallon fabric pot provides plenty of horizontal space while making it nearly impossible to drown your plant. The flexibility also makes harvesting easier later on because you can simply roll down the sides to access the rhizomes without disturbing the entire root system. Plastic and ceramic containers both work as long as drainage is adequate. Terracotta dries out faster than other materials, which can be an advantage or disadvantage depending on your climate and watering habits. In hot, dry areas, terracotta may require more frequent watering. In humid climates, or for gardeners who tend to overwater, that extra drying capacity becomes a benefit. If you are enjoying this video, you will love my free weekly gardening guides. They go deeper than I can here, covering topics like maximizing your harvest in small spaces and adapting these techniques to your specific growing zone. Sign up free in the description and get one. Detailed guide every week. Back to getting this ginger planted. Standard potting mix works as a base, but ginger performs best in soil that balances moisture retention with excellent drainage. A quality potting mix amended with about 20% perlite or pumice creates the loose, rich environment ginger rhizomes prefer. The organic matter holds moisture and nutrients while the perlite prevents compaction and ensures excess water drains away. Avoid heavy garden soil in containers. It compacts over time, restricts rhizome expansion, and holds too much water. Pure compost is too dense on its own, but makes an excellent amendment when mixed at about 25% with potting mix. The combination gives you fertility, moisture retention, and the loose texture ginger needs to spread freely. Fill your container to within 2 inches of the rim. Ginger plants shallow, much shallower than most people expect. Place your rhizome pieces horizontally on the soil surface with the eyes, facing upward. If you cannot tell which side is up, look for any remnants of previous stem growth. Those points orient toward the surface. Press gently to settle the rhizome into contact with the soil. Then cover with about 1/2 inch of mix. 3/4 of an inch maximum. Burying ginger too deep forces the emerging shoots to burn through energy reserves fighting their way to sunlight. Water gently after planting. The goal is moist soil, not saturated. No roots exist yet to uptake water, so flooding the container just creates rot risk. Wet the top few inches and leave it alone. The rhizome knows what to do next. Sprouting typically takes 2 to 3 weeks in warm conditions, sometimes longer if temperatures stay cool. Resist the urge to dig around checking on progress. Every disturbance delays establishment. Ginger evolved in Southeast Asian tropical forests. Warm temperatures, high humidity, and consistent moisture and filtered light rather than harsh direct sun. Matching those conditions produces the fastest growth and biggest harvests. Temperature drives sprouting speed more than any other factor. Below 60 degrees, ginger rhizomes sit dormant and may eventually rot before ever waking up. 70 to 80 degrees is the sweet spot for germination. Above 85 degrees, growth accelerates dramatically. If your home stays cool, a seedling heat mat under the container can raise soil temperature by 10 to 15 degrees and cut sprouting time significantly. Light requirements surprise most people. Ginger tolerates and even prefers partial shade, especially during the hottest part of the day. 4 to 6 hours of direct morning sun, followed by bright indirect light, works perfectly. Full blazing afternoon sun in hot climates can scorch the foliage and stress the plant. A spot with morning sun and afternoon shade, or consistent dappled light throughout the day, produces healthier plants than maximum sun exposure. Indoor growing works well near a bright window. East or west-facing windows provide enough light for steady growth. South-facing windows may deliver too much intense light during summer months. If your ginger develops pale or bleached-looking leaves, it is getting more sun than it wants. Moving it back from the window a few feet or adding a sheer curtain diffuses the light to acceptable levels. Outdoor placement depends on your climate. Zones 9 through 12 can grow ginger outside year-round. Zones 7 and 8 should start containers indoors in early spring and move them outside once nighttime temperatures reliably stay above 55 degrees. Zones 6 and colder treat ginger as a warm season container plant, starting indoors and moving outside only during the frost-free months, then bringing containers back inside before fall temperatures drop. Consistent moisture without waterlogging defines successful ginger cultivation. The soil should feel like a wrung-out sponge, damp throughout, but never soggy. Stick your finger 2 inches into the soil. If it feels dry at that depth, water thoroughly until liquid runs from the drainage holes. If it still feels moist, wait another day or two and check again. Frequency varies enormously based on container size, material, temperature, and humidity. A small terracotta pot in summer heat might need water daily. A large fabric container in mild weather might go 4 or 5 days between waterings. Learn your specific situation rather than following a rigid schedule. The finger test works every time, regardless of conditions. Ginger benefits from regular feeding once active growth begins. A balanced organic fertilizer applied monthly provides steady nutrition without the risk of burning that synthetic fertilizers carry. Work granular fertilizer into the top inch of soil and let watering carry the nutrients down. Liquid fertilizers diluted to half strength work well for more frequent light feeding, perhaps every 2 weeks during peak growing season. Mulching. The soil surface with an inch or 2 of wood chips, straw, or shredded leaves stabilizes moisture between waterings and slowly adds organic matter as it breaks down. In hot climates, mulch also keeps soil temperatures from spiking during heat waves. Pull the mulch back slightly from direct contact with emerging shoots to prevent moisture sitting against the tender new growth. Humidity helps but is not strictly necessary in most situations. Ginger appreciates occasional misting during dry weather, and grouping containers together creates a slightly more humid microclimate as the plants transpire. A humidity tray, a shallow dish filled with pebbles and water set beneath the container, provides gentle ambient moisture as the water evaporates. Most ginger reaches harvestable size in 4 to 5 months from planting. The foliage tells you when the plant is ready. Those tall reed-like stems start yellowing and dying back as the rhizomes mature underground. In tropical climates, this happens naturally as the dry season approaches. In temperate climates, it occurs as temperatures cool and fall. Either way, yellowing foliage signals that the plant is shifting energy away from top growth and into rhizome storage. Baby ginger can be harvested earlier, around 3 to 4 months, for a milder flavor and more tender texture. These young rhizomes have thinner skin and less fiber than mature ginger. Many cooks prefer baby ginger for pickling and fresh applications, where the intensity of mature ginger would overwhelm. Two harvesting strategies exist, and choosing between them depends on your climate and goals. Complete harvest means dumping the entire container, shaking off the soil, and collecting all the rhizomes at once. This makes sense when frost threatens and the plant cannot survive winter outdoors. Wash the harvested ginger, set aside the best-looking pieces for replanting next spring, and use or preserve the rest. Selective harvest keeps the plant growing indefinitely. Instead of dumping the container, work your fingers into the soil at the edges and snap off the newer rhizome sections while leaving the main plant intact. The older central portions continue photosynthesizing and producing new growth. Over time, a single plant harvested this way can produce for 3, 4, even 5 years without replanting. In frost-free climates, this method provides year-round harvest. Container gardeners in cold climates can bring their ginger indoors for winter and continue selective harvesting while the plant grows under lights. Replanting from your own harvest completes the cycle. Every piece of ginger you harvest contains the genetics for unlimited future plants. Save chunks with healthy eyes, let any cut surfaces dry for 2 days, and plant them exactly as you did that first store-bought piece. One initial investment yields ginger forever. Yellowing leaves during active growing season usually signal overwatering rather than nutrient deficiency. Check soil moisture before reaching for fertilizer. If the soil stays wet for days at a time, improve drainage or reduce watering frequency. True nitrogen shortage shows as overall pale coloring and stunted growth, not sudden yellowing, and responds quickly to a balanced fertilizer application. Brown crispy leaf tips indicate insufficient humidity or inconsistent watering. The edges of ginger leaves lose moisture faster than the centers and show damage first when conditions are too dry. Misting the foliage, adding a humidity tray, or simply watering more consistently prevents further browning. Already damaged tips will not recover, but new growth should emerge healthy. Soft, mushy rhizomes mean rot has set in, almost always from overwatering or poor drainage. If caught early, you can sometimes salvage the plant by unpotting it, cutting away all soft tissue until only firm, healthy rhizome remains, letting the cuts dry for 2 days, and replanting in fresh, dry soil. Do not water for at least a week after replanting. If the rot has spread throughout the rhizome, the plant is lost, and you should start fresh with new material. Failure to sprout after 4 weeks usually means the rhizome was not viable, or soil temperatures are too cold. Dig carefully to check the rhizome condition. Firm and healthy looking, just be patient and consider adding bottom heat. Soft or moldy, discard and try again with fresh ginger planted in drier conditions. Leggy stretched growth with pale leaves indicates insufficient light. Move the container to a brighter location or supplement with grow lights. Ginger tolerates low light but performs best with at least 4 hours of direct sun daily. Indoor plants under artificial lighting should receive 12 to 14 hours per day from a full-spectrum source, positioned 12 to 18 inches above the foliage. Pest problems are rare with ginger, but not impossible. Spider mites occasionally appear in dry indoor conditions, showing as stippled leaves and fine webbing. Increasing humidity and spraying with water usually controls minor infestations. Fungus gnats sometimes inhabit overly wet soil, though they damage seedlings more than established plants. Letting the soil surface dry between waterings breaks their life cycle. Drying ginger and grinding it into powder extends your harvest for a full year and concentrates the flavor into a form that works in teas, baked goods, spice rubs, and countless other applications. The process takes about 4 hours and requires nothing more than a knife, a dehydrator or oven, and a spice grinder or blender. Slice harvested ginger into thin uniform pieces about 1/8 of an inch thick. Uniform thickness ensures even drying, so everything finishes at the same time. Spread the slices in a single layer on dehydrator trays, leaving space between pieces for air circulation. Set the temperature to 115 degrees and dry until the ginger snaps cleanly when bent rather than bending or feeling leathery. 4 to 6 hours typically, depending on slice thickness and humidity. If you lack a dehydrator, an oven set to its lowest temperature with the door cracked slightly works fine. Check every hour and remove pieces as they finish drying. A convection setting speeds the process if your oven has one. Once completely dry, grind the ginger in batches using a spice grinder, coffee grinder, or high-powered blender. Pulse rather than running continuously to avoid overheating, which can diminish flavor. Sift the powder through a fine mesh strainer to remove any fibrous bits that did not fully break down. Store in an airtight container away from light and heat. Properly stored ginger powder retains potency for at least 12 months. If you have made it this far, you clearly care about growing your own food and getting the most from your garden space. I send one free detailed gardening guide to your inbox every week covering exactly these kinds of techniques. Link is in the description. You will not regret it. Ginger is one of those crops that rewards you out of all proportion to the effort involved. A few dollars at the grocery store, a container, some patience, and suddenly you have a lifetime supply of one of the most useful ingredients in any kitchen. Start one this season, and you will never look at that produce section the same way again. Good luck in the garden, and keep on growing.